Alright, more New Jedi Order. Following James Luceno's Agent of Chaos duology, we had an early female Star Wars novelist takeover from James Luceno with Kathy Tyers, writing Star Wars The New Jedi Order Balance Point for a more Jedi-heavy story. Balance Point takes a step back from the Han Solo-led Agents of Chaos and looks more into the Solo Skywalker clan as a whole and their battle with the Yuuzhan Vong during 26 ABY. Jaina Solo is injured on a mission with Rogue Squadron as Han, Jason, and Droma are working with Cellcore, along with the pesky tag-along Hutt, Rhonda. Jason has stepped back from the Force because he fears if he overuses the abilities or even touches the Force at all, he'll fall to the dark side after seeing a vision that led him to believe as much. If you know the lore, then you'll know this gets paid off eventually, but we are a bit ahead of ourselves here. Luke and Mara have a side story as well, where they learn Mara is not only healed, but her longing to have a child may be paying off at a fairly bad time, with her and Luke learning they're pregnant with what Mara senses is a baby boy. Anyhow, on a depressed world, Duro, Leia is leading a team trying to restore the planet to its former habitable state, which the New Republic could then use as a base to harbor displaced refugees that are from systems that have fallen to the Yuuzhan Vong. No Mamor, who was thought dead, has actually survived, and he's been in deep cover trying to destroy the Duro settlement from the inside before the coming invasion. Anyhow, the whole Skywalker Solo family end up converging, with Jaina now recovering, going with Mara and discovering No Manor before almost being killed in a cave, with Leia and the Hutt Rhonda being captured for sacrifice as an invasion of the planet by the Vong commences. Leia gets free after meeting with the Vong leader Savan La, when Rhonda sacrifices himself as penance for trying to sell out Jason to the Yuuzhan Vong. Hoping that a Jedi could potentially be a bargaining chip in the Vong war previously, allowing the Hutts to keep Tatooine despite their thorough invasion of Hutt space. And Jason defends his mother from an enraged Savan La, breaking his vow to avoid the Force, realizing that doing nothing might be as bad as taking the risk of falling to the dark side. Savan La is pissed that Jason bested him and makes an announcement to the New Republic after the fall of Duro and the Vong takeover, saying he wants Jedi executed and delivered to him in a genocide similar to Palpatine's Order 66 from the Clone Wars era, saying he specifically wants Jason alive. If the New Republic complies, he promises to stop the invasion on Duro, though any sense of resistance would lead to further assaults, including Coruscant, which the Vong are inching closer and closer to, ending the book on something of a cliffhanger with the fate of the Jedi Order in the balance. Jaina Solo, now part of Rogue Squadron, is almost killed on a mission against the Vong and reunited with her family on Duro, where they are looking to help sick and injured refugees, but the Solo family is at odds still. Jaina is starting to feel a little abandoned by her parents, and yet her mom is still acting overly protective of her, despite the fact that she's both a Jedi and member of Rogue Squadron, clearly finding her path into adulthood. Han Solo is reunited with his faltering family and is sort of back in business, but of course, with all that has happened, they are together, but still everyone is kind of on shaky terms. Jaina and Jason feeling abandoned by their parents, and Han feeling deep guilt over how he treated Anakin, though in his mind, it still nags at him that Anakin is at fault for all that happened to Chewbacca, a tragic death that deep down he knows wasn't due to Anakin's due diligence and more because Chewie heroically sacrificed himself for the greater good, but a nagging feeling nonetheless that will plague their relationship moving forward. Leia is really busy helping refugees as her kids fill her boots to fight the war with the Vong head on, though to her dismay Jaina resents her and Han is Han and has lots of issues. She's in the mindset she must save everyone she can, even if it costs her everything, and in a way this hurts Jaina, since her family has always had their famous names and important duties. This feels extra important to Leia since the destruction of planets and the genocide of people by the Vong is a very painful reminder of Alderaan to her, and her pain when it was destroyed, along with the fact that she couldn't save the people of her planet. The only consolation is that she could find Alderaan's lost in-space refugees, which is kind of what she's trying to do with these planets ravaged by the Yuuzhan Vong. Eventually she sees Han has started coming out his shell a bit, put up following Chewbacca's death, a death, mind you, she also greatly feels, since to her and her kids, Chewbacca is family. He's been around since she met Han, but it's also a death she acknowledges hurt Han the most, so she accepts what Han needed to do to move forward, which I thought was pretty sweet, even at the cost of her kind of having to cover her own emotions on the event. Part of Leia's great internal struggle is that she works with the Senate and does all of their demands, them reaping the benefits and often acting corruptly with the New Republic she largely helped build, and yet, in their time of need, they refused to help, letting Duro fall, a planet that was a key strategic point for the Vong, moving towards the deep core and of course Coruscant, with the Senate sort of locked in this muddled bureaucracy that caused the Senate of the Republic to fall to Palpatine not too long ago. Jason Solo has a subplot babysitting Rhonda the Hutt, a weasel who's only out for himself naturally. The Hutt, of course, trading allegiances damn near scene for scene, and he feels it necessary to insert himself places he isn't wanted or needed. Jason starts getting dark visions, which starts pushing him away from the Force, which is kind of bad timing given the whole Yuuzhan Vong War thing, and this becomes more and more of an issue as we keep up on this series, an internal debate that lasts for a good while. He also senses a lot of anger in Jaina and wonders if perhaps due to their unique link in the Force, he is sensing her darkness more strongly than others. Though eventually, when the invasion of Duro comes, Jason uses his immense abilities to save his mother from the Vong invaders. Eventually, Rhonda dies after being slightly redeemed for all the bullshit he did during this book, though he was still kind of an ass. He probably deserved it a little bit. Mara Jade learns she's pregnant, which, as we mentioned previously, is something she'd been considering, but since she has only recently stopped being horribly ill with side effects popping back up, she greatly fears for the consequences of her unborn child she learned about early in the novel. Vicky Shesh is back and making political moves, however the Solo twins grew up in politics and know she's full of shit, with Vicky intentionally steering the Senate to abandon key planets like Dorma by intentionally dragging the Senate's feet, and also they sense something behind her calm demeanor that may be a little dark. They're still building this character, and comparisons are made between her and Senator Palpatine as he rose to power during the Clone Wars, sort of manipulating everything and getting to the place where he was able to form a dictatorship. It's something that we see them sort of sense with Vicky Shesh, but the problem is she's so popular within the overly corrupt Senate that there isn't really much they can do without making the Jedi's situation worse, and the Senate already kind of hates the Jedi. No Manor is still around causing problems. This time we learn he's been involved in the creation of the bioweapon that infected Mara and gave her her super space illness or whatever. Savan Law, the War Master of the Yuuzhan Vong, comes to the forefront here, being heavily involved in the battle for Duro. He is kind of the Megatron to No Manor's Starscream, so to speak, but the Vong hierarchy is kind of confusing and we're still scratching the surface a bit here at this point in the series. The big moment for him is announcing that they will occupy their conquered worlds in peace and leave Coruscant be if the galaxy works with the Vong to deliver them the Jedi Knights that are still loose in the galaxy, hoping to basically put on another Jedi genocide against the semi-recently reformed Jedi Knights. This would lead to big consequences in the future of the story, and honestly, it was one hell of a cliffhanger. I was getting some goosebumps at the end. It's a really interesting place to leave the novel. This book has a lot of family drama, which is interesting, and it's written pretty well. I think there's a lot of interesting things happening with the Solo clan here, though Anakin is pretty much doing other stuff. Jason grappling with the Force, Leia and Jaina's conflict, Han and Leia burying the hatchet. It's all great. At the time I read this book, I very much was in the mindset that the new Jedi Order series was having a hard time moving forward and becoming pretty repetitive. It's kind of, they defend a planet, the Yuuzhan Vong overwhelm them, mostly being drama from various fronts of the Vong War before everyone comes together for the big battle, but this is kind of the last of that general format, with things starting to really change up as we enter the last days of Coruscant, and the Jedi Order being under the threat of mass eradication again, as they had dealt with 40 years earlier with Order 66. There is a lot coming up that changes up the tone, and there's still a couple novels that are kind of like this vibe. Later on, I started to kind of token these, the catch-up books, where we kind of get everybody's point of view wrapped together. Everyone kind of gets their own like duologies and trilogies as time goes on, and then you'll have these sort of state of the galaxy books in the middle that kind of bring everyone back together and compare notes. It's just sort of the format of New Jedi Order moving forward. Overall, this book was solid. I think it was set up for a lot of stuff coming later, but it all starts getting concluded very soon and moving into very interesting directions. Also, despite being largely functional to the Battle of Duro, it also has some cool moments, and the cliffhanger is one of the best in the history of Star Wars novels, in my opinion. I just think it was so cool, and it leads into some very interesting directions, especially with the start of the next novel, which we will talk about soon. But if you haven't seen my other New Jedi Order books, check out my Star Wars playlist that's going to be linked on my end screen in just a second here. And you can see a bunch of other Star Wars novels, including the first 5 books in the New Jedi Order series before this, so check it out.